This is going to be a short video that just shows the damage to my Protege's JDM FSZE engine following a spark plug failure. But before I get into the main subject, I'd like to give my SAAB fans an update on the 900. Here the car is being towed to my dealer so that I can perform some much needed repairs to get it running again in a somewhat drivable and reliable state. Once I got the car stored safely at the dealer, it sat here for about 3 weeks before I could get to it, as the schedule has been kind of busy. But Saturday, December 18th, I felt it was time to bring it in and start the repair process. I decided to repair the engine this time instead of replacing it, as this was the option that was the most economical, and not only that, you'll get to see a portion of the teardown and view the failed components inside. I was lucky enough to find a low mileage B202 B212 crankshaft for an excellent price that came all the way from Greece, so a special shout out to 1000 Engine Parts. So here I got the 900 on the lift removing the engine. It does not take very long to remove these. At this point, I'm about an hour and 45 minutes in and the engine is already out. And as expected, curiosity got the best of neighboring co-workers as they found the engine of the 900 very fascinating and kind of strange. Here I'm explaining to my co-worker the layout of the SAAB's engine. He found it sort of bewildering that the car features a longitudinal mounted engine setup that was front wheel drive and had an engine where the block is actually mounted on top of the gearbox. Even after explaining it a few times, it took a minute for him to understand how it actually works. It's amazing how people have heard of SAABs but have never took the time to check out what was under the hood. To assist with the repairs, I purchased a hydraulic lifting cart for the engine. Now you can pick these up from Harbor Freight Tool Store for around 200 quid. The capacity is about 500 pounds for this table. Now I don't know how much the 900 power plant weighs, but this table lifts the 900 lump just fine. And yet another co-worker was ultra curious about the 900 engine, and later another fellow technician came up to check out the SAAB power plant, as this really got a lot of attention. Amazing. Nobody had ever seen such an engine layout before. I don't have any camera footage, but at one point I was surrounded by members of the sales team, Porsche techs, my shop foreman, and others who found the 900 fascinating. The cool factor was already settling in. Here are some pictures of the engine on the hydraulic table. This table is a lifesaver and has multiple uses. It features locks so you can raise the engine to a suitable height for disassembly, and it sure beats working on the floor. Once I get the teardown started, I'll share more in-depth details in up-and-coming videos. So let's go ahead and move on to the Protege. The whole cause of this fiasco was a spark plug that failed. The insulator and the electrode literally let go while the engine was running at highway speeds, and well, that spelled out disaster. It damaged a lot of parts and caused my Protege to turn into a freight train. The car was smoking really badly because of ruined cylinder walls, piston and rings, and it screwed the cylinder head, which in turn caused massive oil use. At the time it occurred, I didn't have the funds to immediately replace the engine, so I had to drive around for about a month, leaving a trail of thick blue smoke. It was very embarrassing, and at the same time very vengeful against tailgaters. Once I got the new engine in the car, I kept the old engine hanging around so that I could do a teardown and found out what the hell happened inside. When something like this happens, I just cannot help but investigate. It's just a must. So I spent one of my Saturdays tearing down the FSZE engine, eager to get inside and see what damage had been done. Here I'm removing the timing cover and the timing belt. I always use genuine Mazda timing belts. Never use an aftermarket belt such as the Dayco or the other stuff available from local parts stores. Trust me, there is a physical difference on these critical parts, so don't be afraid to spend $58 on a genuine belt. It's way worth it. The failure occurred on cylinder number 2. The evidence is the excessive wet oil in the exhaust port. Once I got the head off, it was immediately apparent what happened. The debris from the spark plug ruined the cylinder head, and the remains were grinded between the piston and the cylinder walls. Take a look at these photos. Note the rather deep vertical lines in the cylinder bores. These did not pass the fingernail scratch test, period. With these scars, there is no way the piston rings could scrape the cylinder walls of this engine to keep the oil away from the combustion chamber. That's why it was smoking so badly. The crown of the piston was damaged as well. I almost want to say this could possibly be the result of detonation. Anything is possible here. Here's a piston that I removed from the engine that I cleaned. You can see the small dimples on the top of the crown. The debris from the plug traveled out of cylinder number 2 and ended up in the rest of the cylinders through back pulse exhaust travel. I found fragments inside of the catalyst. I cleaned the piston so the damage could easily be seen, and this makes a nice souvenir or paperweight, though this is not the piston from cylinder number 2. The FSZE uses the pistons from the Mazda FP engine as shown here. The FP engine was an engine that was marketed in Japan and Europe only. It never made it to the States during the production years. These pistons have a differing compression height and crown shape that produces a compression ratio of 10.4 to 1. The ultra-rare Mazda Speed version of the FSZE features pistons that produce a compression ratio of 10.7 to 1. Very hard to find even in Japan, but if you want it, JE or Weisico could forge a set for you for around 550 quid. Take a look at the damage to the cylinder head here. You can see how the aluminum surface has been damaged by the spark plug. Something else you'll notice is that the ports of the cylinder head have been processed a bit. That's because instead of trashing the cylinder head, I decided to use it as a port and polish practice mule. I'm no stranger to porting and polishing cylinder heads, and back in my Volkswagen days I ported a few heads and had good results. So I decided to knock the rust off my polishing skills and get back into the groove of things. Here are some photos of the engine bearings. The rod bearings look somewhat normal except for a few polished areas. This could have been due to some light oil contamination. The mains look a bit different though. On some of them you can see high polishing on one side of the bearing and no polishing on the other. This could have been due to the result of the engine running for about a month unbalanced, meaning one cylinder was not firing at all, creating excessive vibrations, or worse, tapering of the journals. I kept the crank and will measure it later to see if it's needed any work, and if it will be, I'll send it to the machine shop should I decide later to put it back into service. You saw photos of the crankshaft previously when I compared it to the US FSDE crank. So since there's no other damage to show, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. Coming up next, I'd like to start the high performance modifications segment of my videos. I'll be focusing on porting and polishing of the cylinder head to get more power output, as well as other mods to make the Protege a more fun and capable daily driver. I'd like to thank you all for watching and would like to wish you and your loved ones a safe and happy holiday. Click the like button, share and subscribe. Merry Christmas to all, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.